My name's Evan Wynns. I'm the Executive Director of the San Francisco Energy Co-operative. The co-op is also a pretty new organization. We were also founded in 2011. We're going to have a yearbook or something, you guys. And this presentation is sort of meant for the general public. I know some of you guys have seen it. I've seen you guys at community groups or whatever. And it's also a little more sort of general consumption, so I might be preaching to the choir a little bit, but when you're selling solar in San Francisco, you get used to that. When we sat down to think about what the purpose for the co-op was going to be, we thought about, this question of why we don't have more green energy. And, it's really sort of frustrating because we have this technology which can take off a lot of the load of consuming fossil fuels, and we have the will. Green energy is popular, and we see it sort of growing in popularity all the time. And the question is, why don't we have more? Well, we thought about that, and we thought about the benefits of green energy and how we can distribute those benefits to more people. How we can make it so that people don't necessarily have access to the hardware, but have access to the good that hardware is doing. And so the first thing that green energy does is that it's good for the environment, right? And this is kind of a no-brainer. As was mentioned in one of the last presentations, we have a very limited time to combat climate change and so forth, and also to build a cleaner, greener world that we can pass on to our children. Green energy also makes money, and this is something that's often overlooked, but it actually is profitable, and I don't need to tell you guys this, but when we talk about the cost of green energy versus fossil fuels, those are really only costs that are borne by people who are investing in fossil fuels, right? Green energy only looks less attractive compared to fossil fuels when you're somebody who owns stock in an oil company or whatever. But if you're a consumer, if you're somebody who doesn't have any of this stuff, then it can actually be profitable for you to put a little bit of money directly into green power. And finally, it's decentralized, right? And this is a really important point, that it takes pressure off this centralized top-down model that we have, which really we've inherited from the 19th century, and we don't need to have any more. So how can we distribute these three benefits, environmental benefit, profit, and decentralization, to more people? Well, first of all, what the co-op does is makes the benefits of green energy available to everyone through the power of collective investment and organization. And I always talk about it as if, you had a house that you wanted to put solar panels on, and let's say it costs you like $20,000 to put solar panels on your roof, right? But maybe you can't for whatever reason, right? It's not suitable, it's shaded or something like that. And so you go to your neighbor and you say, hey, look, I'll pay $20,000 to put solar panels on your roof, and then you pay me, what I would have been saving, and you'll still be saving money on your power bills, right? Now let's say you go to 100 friends and you all just take $200 and pay for this solar installation on somebody else's roof. And so there's no reason why we can't do this. With good organization, with a good plan, there's no reason why this tiny amount of money can't do the same proportional amount of good when a lot of people get together and do it. So by pooling very small investments, we finance solar installations and share the profits equally among the members who contributed to that. So what that means in real terms is we go to community buildings, we tell them that we'll finance solar for them, and then they pay us back and we pay it back to the members who contributed. And what that does is lower the bar for investment. It means that anybody can really get a piece of green energy. So how is it organized? We always talk about the co-op as being solar for renters, right? If you don't have a roof to put solar panels on, you really have no way to get into this market now. But what the co-op can do is make it available for anyone to get a small piece back. Now obviously if you're only investing a very small amount, it's not going to be something you can retire on. But we always say if we can prove that we can get a decent return of investment on a $50 share, then we can really prove that solar is profitable for anyone. And the co-op is equitable. We're incorporated as a cooperative in California, which means we have certain rules that we have to operate under. Everyone gets a vote. Money does not equal voice. So it doesn't matter if you buy the maximum buy-in or if you're just a voting member, you still get one vote. And the co-op can be a model for other communities. This is really important. We always have conceived this as a seed which can teach other communities how to do it, because that decentralization means that anybody can really start doing this. We don't need governments and big corporations to really start the transition to a green energy economy. We can do it from the grassroots. We just need to popularize the idea of community models. And that's really what the co-op does. I mean, most of all, our job as community leaders on energy is not necessarily to make our own things work. I mean, we do have to prove that these models work, but it's to popularize the idea that everyone should be invested in green energy. It's to make it so that we become a society of energy farmers. And we can really do that. We have the tools to do it. And these are different models that are making that happen, and that's what we're here to do. There's more slides here. There's benefits for joining the co-op. We also have a sustainable partner business program where we offer discounts to members and so forth. It's kind of like a green Groupon deal. And it's pretty small, but we're growing all the time. So your $10 yearly membership doesn't just get you a vote in the co-op. It also gets you certain benefits. Co-op memberships are available for $10 a year. We also have units of resource membership. They're kind of like shares. The minimum is $50 and the maximum is $250. And when you buy those units of resource membership, you actually will get a share back over time. And 7% is a little bit optimistic at this point. That's sort of our ideal after 5 years rate of return. It's probably going to be more like 5% when we start paying back the shares. But that's a decent rate of return. And that's where all of our information is. We have our website up there. We're also email at info@SF Energy Cooperative. That's our phone number. And we're on Facebook and Twitter as well. So thanks very much.
Can I get the mic?
Oh yeah, sorry. No, I just wanted to hear you. You guys hear me whispering.
That's great. I just find all these models so inspiring, and I hope maybe one of you can help me get solar on my condo one of these days.
We're working on it.
So maybe we can have the lights again and have some time for questions. Carrie, go ahead.
I have a question that, I know it's relatively new, and, this would be for anybody in the room that might actually know or, have something to offer on it. But because of the recent ruling about the RPS, the buckets of energy for RPS compliance, the number one bucket being fully bundled energy along with the RECs, the second being shaped and formed, and the third being roughly unbundled. The fact that distributed generation behind the meter, what we might consider the premium ideal, that those RECs are now going to be classified as unbundled, from the best that I understand. It seems to me that this is an incredibly profound limit that will, not just because for the REC traders, but for the actual being able to build the value of the REC into your financing. And I wanted to see if you guys or anybody else could address, how this might impact and what are people thinking about.
I can speak to our own model, and that is that, I used to work at Center for Resource Solutions in the Greenie Energy Program, and one of the things that we really try to educate people of there was that RECs are really, there's this issue of double claiming, and solar, especially sort of on a small scale, is really hard not to double claim, because if you have solar on your roof, you're probably going to want to publicize that, you're probably going to want to popularize it, and people are going to notice it, and people are going to make claims about it. And so the whole idea of you selling the REC is that someone else is then claiming that green energy. So for Revolve's model, we're not going to be selling any of the RECs. For that reason, is that we want the communities that we serve to be able to claim their renewable energy and to be able to make those claims about it and to be the only ones that are able to.
That's cool, but just to understand then, that energy that's being made is then also all going to be in addition to the RPS. So in other words, if you're in a utility model where you still have, well, they all, all the utilities have to meet the RPS, then you're kind of pushing the RPS onto bigger projects and centralized. So it's kind of like you need this, see what I'm saying? Like you can't say that we're going to be decentralized, but then you still, because of state law, you have to meet the RPS. Where does the RPS compliant energy then come from? That fits within a model that.
I just wonder if everyone here knows what RPS is.
No.
I think we have a pretty varied audience, so maybe you can just briefly.
I'm sure it's just like the concept that in California, 33% of all the energy has to come from renewable energy sources. And that has to be sort of documented. So the recs are the way that they beam count, you know, like, okay, well, this is renewable energy, this is not, and these megawatts are renewable, these aren't. They call a rec, which equals 1 megawatt hour of energy. And so what I'm basically saying is if we're moving to where they retire, like in the revolve model, where they retire their own recs and they don't sell them to the utility, then that doesn't get to be used for the renewable energy portfolio, which is great because then somebody else has to make more renewable energy, but then that's pushing it onto a centralized system, or larger feed-in tariffs maybe would be another potential model. You know, kind of like the, you know, what you know, this gentleman was talking about, but what would be the model in your ideal that you find a way that you can meet the RPS and still have DG?
And anyone can answer this who has any thoughts on it too. We can get it.
I think it's you know, it's our perspective that if we can allow the community to claim the renewable energy and not sort of help the utility. I mean, not to say that we don't want to help the utility, but you know what I mean, allow the utility to figure out how it wants to figure its RPS requirements. You know, that's up to them. I mean, if they want to go in line with you know, the distributed generation goals of the governor, you know, that they can do that too, and we're not sort of chipping away at that. We're in a way kind of removing ourselves from that so that those goals still have to be met. But that's a big question. Yeah.
Let me just, I want to throw in, Carrie and I actually just met yesterday when she brought this up, and I think it's a great thing to think about. We're looking at PPA as our primary model just because that seems to be the easiest way to do the financing for the nonprofit and take advantage of the tax incentive.
What's PPA?
Power purchase agreement, which is kind of a third-party financing agreement. And in that case, like Solar City and Sunrun, they offer PPA. And in that case, it is still bundled, and they're the ones who take the credit, and it still counts towards the RPS. But I don't know, maybe, actually, the other thought I had, maybe Eric can answer this, is under community choice, does, you know, how are the recs then distributed? Are they sold from each individual property that has solar, or how does it work?
Yeah, so under community choice, communities that do community choice have to meet the state's RPS standard, which those of you who don't know what RPS is, that just stands for Renewable Portfolio Standard. And it's just what counts as renewable. For example, big hydro dams like the Hetchy Dam do not count because of environmental impacts. So community choice has to comply with the 33% by 2020 once it's set up. So Marin will have to do that as well. You can do that, community choice entities can do that by both building and generating electricity, getting the energy efficiency to just lower your overall use, and also by purchasing on the market if they can't get all the way there to the 33%. So that's kind of, and then within community choice, a lot of it will be municipally owned, so a lot of those renewable energy credits will go to those units. And I believe that even to the extent that some of it's privately owned by small owners like homeowners, that the city can claim some credit for the clean energy within community choice.